Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Brita DeRemee is joining us on the podcast today. She has over 30 years of experience helping clients create homes that they love to live in. She does everything from renovations to home furnishings, and she is passionate about leveraging art to inspire design. She actually has an art background. She loves the collaborative and the layered process. We'll talk about that a little bit on the show today. Her roots are Swedish, and her modern sensibilities make her a natural advocate for craft and sustainability. She loves to embrace the pragmatic and the spiritual, the functional and the beautiful, and she serves a wide variety of busy professionals and art lovers and others that are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the greater Twin Cities area and beyond. And Brita and I began working together a little over a year ago, and it has been such a pleasure watching her create a business that suits her instead of having to shift who she was to fit into some mold, real or perceived. So we're going to be talking about that process on the show today, about how she has learned to embrace her superpower of ADHD and how giving herself freedom to live and work outside of the proverbial box has been a joy. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Brita, welcome to the podcast today.
Good morning, Michele. Fun to be here. Yeah.
Good. I'm excited to have you here. I know you and I have worked together on and off for a while, and we've been waiting for the day for you to kind of have come into your own so that we could have an opportunity to have this conversation. So I feel like a mother hen. Like, look at my little chick, and I'm so happy for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. In fact, I think it was almost just a year ago where I reached out to you. I had signed up to Understanding Your Financials course online and was stumbling into so many areas that I just thought, help, and you were ready to put me on your calendar for January. So it has been just about a year.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because that Understanding Your Financials course, what is so beautiful about it, not only does it teach you how to read your financial statements, which is hugely important, but it starts to highlight areas of, is that really what I want to be my income stream? Or is that really where I want to make my money? Or am I doing what I really want to be doing? So it actually becomes prescriptive in some ways for other areas of the business. Like it shines a spotlight on everything we're doing. And I think that's what you found as well.
Oh, definitely. It was your way of getting into somebody, I think, and finding their weak points and saying, it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to help you through that. So it wasn't about the financials. As you so often say, it's never about the financials. Everybody can do math. It's about everything else that people bring to the table. So I found refuge in your coaching.
Oh, thank you.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah. And, it's funny. So many people tend to think, I'm just want to talk about this for a second before we jump in, because I think you brought up a good point. So many people tend to think, well, Michelle's just a financial coach. I use your financials to help determine, are you where you want to be, or are you not where you want to be? And then it tells me the story of where to dig and look next in your business to help you get to where you want to be. So it very much is a tool that I use to figure out if the choices that you're making all year are getting what you desire or are they not. So it's more than let me teach you what the numbers mean and how to do the math. It's way so much more. It's just a piece of what we look at, right?
Oh, definitely. And it's almost like you go down a rabbit hole of everything else. And I will say that the past year has been very, very challenging in that way. And I've put everything into it and doing what I needed to do to be where I am today. And I'm just happy and excited and looking forward to the new year. So
that's awesome. So Brita, tell us a little bit about how your business started. When you started originally in interiors, what did that look like and when was that?
Well, that was a long, long time ago. I had my business for almost 30 years now. It was after college. I had gone the liberal arts college education route and majored in art. I always knew that I wanted to be a painter, and I graduated from college without a plan. And so you can kind of see the idea that if you're going to be a starving artist. I remember I brought that up in one of our first coaching calls, and you stopped me dead in my tracks and said, well, what about a well-fed artist? And I hadn't realized that so much of my identity was wrapped up in this idea that I could never figure out how to make money with my creativity. So
those subliminal messages, they really can wreak havoc. It's that money conversation that I talk about. Go back to your past, what something that was said, and that idea about starving artists then makes us feel like we can't charge or that we won't be able to make money. And then when you take it and parlay it into interiors or any other part, we carry that with us. And it's so funny. I remember saying to you, why do you have to be starving? Why can't you be well fed? And it was just a moment, right? It was just a general conversation.
Yeah.
But it stuck with you. And it's been interesting when you and I were emailing before we started the podcast recording, you made mention of that and said that really stayed with you and kind of informed, and you started really becoming inquisitive after that. Why can't I?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. But there's also something the world tells you that, art is something that's completely separate from the business life, that it has this place that isn't part of the business world. So that if I were going to enter this business world, that somehow I would be untrue to myself too. It wouldn't be as authentic, which I've discovered is definitely not the case. Definitely not. So I'm finding that authenticity and growing. The last year has really been a business education for me too, because in addition to your podcast and your coaching, I've went deep into all these other wonderful podcasts and communities that are offering support and ideas and enthusiasm and sharing stories. And that has been absolutely critical in the past year as well. So thank you for being part of that.
Oh, you're so welcome. So you came out of school, you start your business over 30 years ago with art. When did you move into interior design?
Well, as many people do who are creatives, they end up with retail. And growing up, I was always designing things, always creating things, always trying to sell something or hold a carnival. I sold greeting cards door to door. I was, always had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit for sure. So that translated well into retail. I worked at a furniture store, was hired by the owner when he overheard me trying to help a friend of mine decide which desk to buy. I can talk design easily. I love talking about design and, writing about it and explaining to people who don't get design or may not be as visual, how visuals work, how design works, what it means. And those are the types of things I love to do. And that skill definitely helped me in retail sales. And from there I definitely moved up into the world of a really nice retail store that sold high-end Scandinavian furniture and was in charge of putting on craft exhibitions and doing design talks there. And it just it was a natural growth for me. Soon I had people asking me to do things for them outside of what the retail sales were. And at that point, I just didn't feel comfortable spending, time paying where I was under the retail store's watch, stepping outside and using that to help retail clients with other things that had nothing to do with the store. So I took a leap, found a part-time job selling couture clothing at a local department store that I could get full benefits for working 20 hours a week. I mean, that was a different era, right?
Right.
And then I thought, well, I can do this. So I started my business as a design consulting mostly, because I wanted to be paid for my ideas. I did not want my income to be connected to selling stuff that somebody didn't need. I always wanted it to be about creativity, ideas, resourcefulness, definitely buying quality products and knowing how to use them well. But sometimes I could make a difference in somebody's home just by telling them to move something or to recover something as opposed to sell. So for me, that whole profitability sort of definition that you talk about, that profitability isn't necessarily financial. At that point in my life, I did not have a profitability plan for sure. I just felt that having the freedom to be paid for my creativity was hugely profitable for me, at least in my understanding of what business would be at that point in my life.
Okay. And so when you started doing that, did you find that you were making money at your creativity, or did you find that you were offering a whole lot more creativity than you were maybe charging for?
Oh, for sure, the latter of the two, a whole lot more creativity. But I also didn't feel, I think I wasn't ready to feel like I could charge for every hour, or that I could assume that, who was I to say that you could have this $8,000 sofa for, $2,000 or whatever. It just wasn't part of who I was at the time to understand that I had a right, or, there wasn't any problem with making money.
Right. It's been so interesting. You brought up one point of it. I remember speaking to someone recently who told me their partner thought that they should not make a profit in their business, that was being, I guess, unfair, or maybe it was being too capitalistic. And I pushed back on that idea. I mean, I'm not talking about, capitalism run amok where,
right.
We're making $7 million and we're not paying anybody. That's a different conversation. But we are in business to make a salary and to make a profit. And the profit, separate from us being paid fairly for our time working in that business, is for the risk that we're taking and for all these other things that we're doing. And so when you couple this idea of maybe I don't deserve a profit or I shouldn't make a profit with this secondary idea of starving artist, or if you're an artist and you've sold out, I'm putting in air quotes, to capitalism, then you're not really an artist. You're now, but at the same time, don't we want to make millions for our paintings like Monet did?
Oh, yes.
They currently have a Monet, right? He probably didn't make it, but
yeah,
on his work does. But don't we want that? And yet we're limiting ourselves on how we do it. And it's like we have these ideas that everything is pigeonholed to the left or to the right.
Right.
Versus it is okay. I can't even tell you how many times I go, I give you permission to make a profit. I give you permission to charge what you're worth. I give you permission. And it's not that they necessarily need my permission, but they need to know that in the context of fair business practices, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And the people that I work for would expect it too. I mean, there isn't anybody. I love my clients. I mean, they love what I can do for them, and I've never had any indication from them that it should be otherwise. So I had to
it's an internal thing.
Oh, definitely.
And don't you think that the clients who love you, who want your business to be sustained so that you'll be there the next time they call, they would be horrified, I think, in many cases, if they knew how little we made to do what we do, or how little we were charging, or how we were undercutting our hours, or how we were doing all these self-sabotaging types of things that was putting our business at risk so that we couldn't serve them. None of them would work that way. And I don't think if it were narrowed down that tightly, they would want us to do that either, if they're really our ideal great clients.
Definitely not. And, it is that piece of self-sabotage for sure, but it was also a matter of knowledge. And because, even in a good liberal arts education with an art major, I did not learn anything about business, anything. The only thing I knew about business was being on a retail sales floor and selling something. That was fun. I loved doing that. I loved when I had to try to figure out what a client needed, or a customer, I should say, at that point, was great fun for me. And I got to sell beautiful things, and it was very satisfying. But to know every other piece of the business, that really required a lot of education. And the nice thing about having done business the way I was able to do it, I started my business, and within a couple of years, I was married, and within a couple more years later, we had started a family. I have 3 sons that are all grown now, but during that time I was raising them, my business was kind of it was that little part of me that didn't have to do with mothering. being a mom, as you know, your time almost seems like it's never your own. And be able to have a part-time business, I didn't have to market. I didn't have to, it was all word of mouth. I had fantastic projects, but I always had a little piece of me. And that was another kind of profitability center for me. It was the freedom to keep that piece of me during those heavy years of parenting. And so that was really part of the business I value. And over that broad arc of time, it was a very slow learning curve, but I was able to digest a lot of great life lessons, a lot of business lessons, make fantastic contacts with people. We have a design center in Minneapolis. That is wonderful. I have long-term relationships with showrooms there. So it all got to grow very naturally, which was good for me. After my boys were off to college and out of the house, my intent was to always say, okay, it's my turn. Now I really want to, develop my business and market it. And that was the point at which it was not only that self-sabotage sort of message that would lingered in the back of my psyche, but it was also the fact that I realized I need more business skills, period, to really be able to structure something and market it. And hence my call out for help.
What other struggles do you think that you had in business prior to that? So we have this idea of artistry shouldn't be a business. We have, and I'm not saying any of these are right or wrong. They just were a belief system that informed the way that we made choices. Uh-huh. We had this idea of, I don't know how to do business, or I don't know that I can charge for it all, or even I'm paid by the delight on their faces and not necessarily in the hours of time. Yep. But I can let that go because I have the freedom to be an artist. And so we're paid in this idea of freedom to explore, right? But I know you also had a couple of other challenges, one being ADHD. And figuring out how that impacted your business. We'll talk about that in a second. But did you find any other struggles that you had other than like lack of business understanding in general?
Well, and by business understanding, I mean, that was the idea of marketing for the most part.
Okay.
At the time, I did have an accountant at one point. I now have a bookkeeper. So I didn't have to spend, all this time trying to pull together records and know how to do record keeping and really lacked confidence in doing that the right way, even though I didn't know what the right way was because no one really had told me. I was very careful about bank accounts and things like that I, especially when you're using somebody else's money, you want to be sure that, you're responsible with it. But it was that. It was also this fear that because I had not been to design school specifically, that I was somehow outside the industry. And I'm very accustomed to being outside the box. I tend to get very bored with trends. I want to create something new every time. I mean, my whole creative spirit really doesn't live very well in systems and processes because and that's part of that, as we discussed before, it's my superpower. I'm always designing new things, and that's where my delight comes from. Working with people is my delight. Finding those boring things that you have to do to run a business was never what I wanted. But at the same time, I really wanted to be a professional. I wanted to have beautiful invoices. I wanted to always, understand how to do presentations. And I felt like those types of things may have been part of a design school education that I didn't get. And that was kind of an anxiety in me that, who was I to think that I could just make this up? It's that imposter syndrome sort of thing we talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens a lot. We see that show up. So you had quite a few things that in your mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That needed some adjusting. And I know we spent a lot of time when you came to me with your understanding your financials and, hey, talk to me. I think you were kind of shocked at first when I was like, okay, so we're not going right to the financials. We're going to use those.
Right.
We're going over here to mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Because you pushed back a little bit on that.
I'm sure I did. Yeah.
You pushed back, and not in a bad way. I mean, you were always super respectful. You're a super kind person. But I remember also when you originally reached out, you led with the fact that I'm ADHD and these things are a struggle, or I'm an ADHD and I can't do these things, or I'm ADHD and I don't fit. Mm-hmm. And I remember us having a lot of conversations. I I told you, I said, hold on, I got Peter Shankman coming on the podcast, remember, because I think he came in not long after that. I was like, listen to that. His book is faster than normal, and I'll put that link. And then we started talking about it. And I love how now we're a year out, and yes, you have an ADHD mind, which many, many creatives have. I can't even tell you the number of designers and workrooms and others that I work with that are creative, that is, a part of, as you say, their neurological makeup. But we also know that is the superpower. Yeah. And I've shared before, my sons are dyslexic, as is my husband, and it's their superpower. And I wouldn't change it for the world because I am not dyslexic. And so I see the world one way, and instead of looking at that as a disability, I look at it as a super ability. Yeah. Because I always giggle and go, my family doesn't, outside of me, they don't have a box. They don't even know where the box is. I can remember my youngest going, Mom, what box? And I was like, dang, that would be nice to go through life with no box. Yes. And, right? So when we can stop and look at let's say the gifts, there's a whole book called The Gift of Dyslexia. If we were to look at the gift of ADD and ADHD, right, instead of the challenge of it or the difficulty in it, because I'm not discounting that is there. But when we shift our mindset to go, oh, but what does it do for me? Tell me in this last year, Brita, how you have looked at your ADHD as a gift and how you have been able to harness it as a superpower. Because I can promise you there are listeners right now that are on the edge of their seats going, please tell me how you did that. Just give me, drop some breadcrumbs, sister, because I need to go there. So let's drop a few breadcrumbs. And I'll start by saying part of it was, at least from my standpoint, right? So we each have our different views. Right. But you came to me, and it became the topic of a lot of our conversations at the very, very beginning. It kept showing up as this limiting belief for you that I can't do it because of. I can't do this because of. I can't fit because of. And I remember going, stop. Yes. Stop. Yes. Stop. I'm not disagreeing that you have it. I'm not disagreeing it's not a challenge. But why did you feel like, I remember going, Brita, you don't have to have the business everybody else has. You don't have to quit trying to force their process into your life. Let's create the process that works for you. I learned that early on trying to educate my dyslexic. I'm a very organized, process-driven person. That's my whole, darn degree from college. And it is natural to me. I just work that way. My husband has the same degree and is dyslexic. I can promise you he does not organize anything like me. And when I tried to put my system on top of my child, I stressed him out. Yeah. So instead, we sat back and said, he organized by color. He organized by color in middle school, blue is this, black is this, green is this, red is this, for, which subject or what he carried it all the way through. Right. I'm over here organizing by content. He's like, I can't do that. And so literally kind of releasing the reins on here is a process that you must follow. That's the box. And that was the box that you and I spent probably the first few months tearing down. And I don't think you knew that you had the right to tear the box down. I had no clue that was something that was possible. I just didn't. And even though I had been providing design services for so long and people were happy with what I did for them, I still was holding on to that box for sure. It makes you feel less than, because if you don't feel like you can do what you're supposed to do within these confines and constraints, it was now a diminisher for you as opposed to a support and a help for you, right? Right. And, like you, I have sons. I have 3 sons, and I married my opposite, which is absolutely wonderful. We're very yin and yang, and he's very time management type of, super organized guy. And I'm his creative counterpart, so we're very aware of our differences in that way. And our 3 sons, all of them are more bell curve types. And I think that when you raise kids that are not in the middle or inside the box, you might say, you learn a lot about, you become their champions, and you want to support them because you see the brilliance that they have. And even though it's completely outside what the norm is, and then you realize, that's really okay. And you can start
mothering yourself in a way, or being your own champion. I guess that's one thing.
Can we stop right there for a minute? Because
Yeah.
I do remember you sharing with me about your sons and really just sharing about their brilliance, and they're on the, like you said, the ends of the bell curve, not in that box, like mine aren't in the box either. And you just kept talking about the beauty of their creativity and the beauty of what they did. And I remember saying to you, but Brita, why would you not let yourself be like that? Which is, you talk about mothering yourself, is going, if I can recognize this beauty and this awesomeness in other people who are outside of the center of the bell curve, if I'm outside of the center of that curve, why can't I see the same awesomeness in me?
Yeah. And even the people that are closest to you, who've always loved you that way, it's just, it took a lot of courage to step out of that. And then go, oh yeah, we can do this. I need help. I think I just told you I hired an admin person just part-time. It was a perfect situation for her and for me. And I've reached out for help a lot in the past, mostly from my extremely talented family who is techie, or, there's my oldest son is an accountant. I've got a web or digital marketing specialist in my middle guy, and a graphics video design kind of specialist in my youngest guy. So I might as well pull from all of my family.
Yes.
But then when you don't rely on your family, it feels like you're grown up. There's something about doing it for yourself, hiring the help that you need. So this admin person I hired is great. She's helping me move some things along that I knew I had to do. The other piece of it that I remember discussing is the Strengths Finder, which is, again, it appears a lot in your podcast,
yes,
as well as the why. And those, I had already done the Strengths Finder, and my number one was strategic, which was totally blew me out of the water because I never thought I could be strategic. So that, to have even a test, that kind of outside information and objectivity put on who you are, and then start to kind of let that sit for a while and think, oh, well, what does that mean? How is it that I am strategic? And then you begin to understand yourself a little bit better too.
I remember you saying to me at the beginning, this amount of introspection is like painful for me. This is. You had done a lot already, but I was asking you to do even more. And I think that's so funny. Not funny, ironic. I don't know what the word is. I mean, I just use that word because it's grab, right? Yeah. But quite often people will come to me thinking that there's they either want to financially grow. Like, you weren't in financial distress.
No.
You were wanting to scale and grow.
Right.
And so I get that all the time. And I go, okay, let's talk about you. And you're like, I don't want to talk about me. Help me talk about how to grow. And I'm like, we got to talk about you to grow. And, I do remember quite a few emails. And then when you got into the groove, you just started sharing you just started putting it out there. Yeah. And I remember saying, please, if you will, just trust me. If we do this work, I will show you how it all fits. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so by doing the Strengths Finder, by doing the why, and I mean really us digging into the why, getting past all the surface answers of why, getting down to that deep root and that deep belief system of why you get up every day. Mm-hmm. What is it that informs the way that you see the world, right? That why. When we get down to that, I remember it doing is when I said to you after that, Brita, you don't have to have the business everybody else has. I don't care if every other designer is doing A, B, and C. Yeah. If you find joy in going in and doing X and Y, then by gosh, let's build a business of X and Y. There are people who need that. And you said, I can do that. And I said, you can do that.
Yes, that was very liberating because I had kind of already done that in my little closet way, in the way I've been serving people over the years. That was how I showed up on their doorsteps to kind of just to help them through their design issues was really what I was natural and passionate about doing. And I didn't think it was legitimate. I really thought that was would not be seen as a business that was real,
real design
business.
And that fed the imposter piece, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Right.
And I remember saying, let's let go of that construct. What if you got to work within your superpower, which is, art meets design. What if after, you kept defining what you loved, and
Right,
it was
right.
not the normal,
No.
AKA go in, I want a blank room, I want to design from nuts to
Right.
bolts. You kept saying, I want this to be a process over time. I want to go in and layer. I
Yeah.
want to go in and talk about color, and I want to talk about a piece of art and then let it inform the space. And it was just a different approach.
Completely. Yeah.
Design. But you didn't think at the time that it was acceptable.
An industry standard. Like I
Right,
wanted to be a
industry
professional. I wanted to be a professional. That was so important to me, but it didn't feel like it was that professional industry standard in the way I was delivering my services, or at least how I was doing it. Or I don't know exactly how to put that, but there was that huge imposter syndrome that was lurking in the background. And because of that, you start doing that self-sabotage thing where you don't charge for all your time, or you don't charge enough, or you kind of might find that there was a little bit of a conflict, so you just ate it, instead of dealing with it.
It also leads to, if not dealt with, right? And I mean, not only the imposter syndrome, but this idea that I can't work in a way that I am passionate about, or that I was, in my mind, that God created me to see the world. I mean, He gave you the superpower outside the bell curve,
right?
Not for you to diminish, but for you to exploit. So how do we use it? And I remember saying to you, what if we could really marry all these things? Because everything you're saying to me looks like that's what you want to do.
Right.
And every time you were taking this ideal interior design business construct, you kept feeling like your hands were tied.
Right.
And you kept telling me you didn't feel passionate about the job. Those weren't the jobs you loved.
Right.
You could do them. You could do them well, but they were not the ones that they say sparks joy for you.
Right. Right. And you definitely have to work with that joy. I mean, that, especially for a creative, for anybody, it's really fun to work with somebody or hire somebody who is really authentically passionate about why they do what they do. And I don't care, if it's a person who trims trees or polishes cars or does software design. I mean, it's all, I love how people are excited about what they do. And I find it very painful when somebody isn't excited about what they do. And I knew that I knew what excited me and what I could see my clients' eyes light up when I would be working with them. I just didn't know that was okay to call a business.
Yeah. Okay. So when we learned and worked together that it was okay to call it business, and then what we're going to do, right? Because we didn't just let this idea of here's how I'm going to mix art and design be business. We still then put business principles around it. Yeah. So here's how you do it, and here's how you make money at it, and here's how you describe it and message it, and this is who the ideal client is. I mean, we still went through all of the work.
Right.
But you had, it was a mental shift to go, I can call this business. Like, I can be creative enough and out of the box enough to make this a business.
Exactly.
Then you started owning that. Brita, your business morphed and changed when you really came into your own, that you could mix the artistry with the design. Tell us what has happened in your business over the last 6 months with that new understanding.
Well, one thing that you help me with is really embracing this idea that you don't give things out for free. And I've heard so many designers talk about this sort of meet and greet call where they have this initial consultation just to kind of get to know each other and size up the job. And, you get a lot of good information there and they're going to like you, right? So then they're going to hire you. I found that what I could provide in those first few hours of working with somebody was really the meat of my business. I can come up with so many ideas. I love talking about design. I love analyzing problems and coming up with solutions on the spot. And I found that was so valuable, and you gave me permission to charge for that. So we talked about a process where that first consultation would be, in my mind at that point, rather expensive. You were asking me to charge a lot more for that than I was comfortable charging, but also pointed out the fact that how much time you actually put in to nurturing a client that eventually will hire you for that first consultation. And then the next thing that you suggested is that while I'm at that consultation, that's also a sales opportunity where I can say, well, I don't have to be there for the sake of somebody just giving me a full room and expecting full service design with an entire space. It doesn't have to be that. I can actually create a next stage of services that is focused on the particular needs of the client or the needs that I identify in that first appointment. And then I can actually sell services toward the end of that appointment that will lead to others. But those services will be specific to those needs. It doesn't mean that I have to say, well, there you go. You don't have a whole room to give me. I'm out of here. Part of my business is the flexibility and adaptability of it. I really like to help people in all sorts of ways. And it doesn't always lead to full service design. Over time, it can lead to full service design. There's many clients I've worked with where I might have been called in to help them with something they just didn't understand. Or even, how am I going to arrange the art in my wall? Or I need to pick out a color of carpet, and I can't seem to find the right carpeting. But through that and the relationship that I would develop beginning with that initial design consultation, you earn trust. They see your ideas, and then it's a really great sales tool to see other work down the road. And eventually those projects become full service design. So
right. I remember during that process too, you had an original art.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And installation that you've now had. Mm-hmm. What it really did was it freed you up to serve your ideal client the way you wanted to serve them.
Exactly.
And the way they needed and wanted to be served.
Yes.
So it removed this idea that you needed to oversell them. And I'm not suggesting anybody goes in with that.
Of course.
But when you go in with this subliminal message that the only way to really do design is to do this, then
exactly. Yeah.
Just naturally without even trying.
Right.
So we found that for you, the biggest thing was creativity. Mm-hmm. We remove some of the boundaries. We really identified who your ideal client is, because you still have a very narrow ideal client in some ways, right? It's not like you're open for anybody that calls and just wants one piece of art. That's still not necessarily going to match for you. Yeah. So we really had to narrow in, because part of your superpower is going in and seeing issues that they may not even see.
Right.
And to help, like they may bring you in thinking they need a piece of art, yet you notice that the furniture is not arranged correctly, or that the color on the wall is not going to work. Right. You know what I mean? There's so many layers to it. And you like being able to go in with the freedom of, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater in the room, but I am going to go further than what you think you are telling me. Right? Unless that's really all that you need. And then that's all that I'm going to give you. Right. But it freed you up to work within that. And if they want to do the whole room, then what you also, I remember saying to me was, I like to do it in stages and layers. Like I work and think in layers, not like me go in and design the whole thing and walk away. That wasn't necessarily the most comfortable approach for you.
Right.
You were a bit more layered, right? And how you saw the space. So it just freed you up, even in a full-blown empty space design, to do it in a way that was very authentic to the way that you process information and color and value and all those other things.
Yeah. And part of it is, as well, is that I really like high quality pieces and art and things that will resonate with the person that owns them for a long time. I mean, I love the materials, that fine materials and construction and craftsmanship, what I grew up with. It was just part of my language. And to do all of that at once can really be limiting for many people. And I think I am so willing to do just part of a project so that people can afford and stage their investments over time and live more fully with a better quality environment. That's really what I'm going for and working with them. And so I think designers are often seen as, controlling or all at once, or all, and those are views the world has. I think it's changing now. I think the industry is changing so much, but I really love opportunities to make a difference in small ways, but find that those differences really are powerful ones, even if it's just figuring out a coat closet or a way to feed the cat in the new kitchen. You know, how do you design all these features that make people's lives function better and makes them, feel better too? So
let me ask you this, Brita.
Yeah.
How have you seen your confidence shift and change since the time that you have started not only embracing who you were created to be and the way that you want to work and that feels natural, but also putting it into practice? Because I know the first few times were scary.
Yes.
I said, do it
anyway. Yeah.
Do it anyway. You're prepared. We've done the work. Do it anyway. And I remember you coming back and going, they took it. Like, they didn't push back. I kept thinking, we have this idea that everybody's going to really fight and push back.
Yes.
And as long as we are really well prepared and we do our work properly, we don't often get, I'm not saying we won't sometimes, but we don't often get the pushback that we are anticipating.
Right.
And so how did your confidence start to grow and to shift once you owned it? Because if you own it, you can sell it.
Right. Right.
That you had the ability to now describe it to those ideal clients in such a way that they're like, I can't live without that. Yeah. They said yes. And how has that morphed your business even further?
Well, I've gotten much better at anticipating where I might get thrown under the bus, as far as being able to give people so many ideas all the time, and developing a process that fit how I wanted to work gave me confidence, and it created a much easier way of selling my services. It's so much easier for me now to say, well, I've got a process for this, and this is the first stage, then this is the second stage, and just to totally own it, and it fits my priorities and for design, the way I do business, what I value the most, and I can talk about it and talk about it confidently rather than feel it without a process. I was always vulnerable to this self-sabotage idea of, well, I just gave them a free hour. That's fine. It was only an hour of my time. And that doesn't say embrace the full value of what you just gave them, somebody.
Right. Okay. The other thing I think it does when we understand how we want to work, and we've done this deep work that you've done over the year, right? Or over some period of time. Yeah. Not only does it give us confidence to stand up and to describe it, but it gives us confidence when we get pushback on our own process. Mm-hmm. Because then we know that the process we've created is the one that allows us to really focus and being deliberate on getting the outcome that you and the client both want. And so it makes you more, you don't have to stop and think about how am I going to do this, or how do I be a chameleon in this moment and make my business who they think it should be or who they want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I use the example a lot. If your business is a pizza restaurant and you sell pizza, sell pizza. Don't show up and try to sell Chinese because that's what they want. Send them down the street.
Right.
Be who you are, offer what you have, and then do it really. Be like the best pizza joint in town.
Right.
But if you're a pizza joint focused on pizza, and all of a sudden you're changing that you sell Chinese to this person, and you sell Indian over here and burgers over here, like you're never going to be the best pizza joint.
No. So
we've got to quit screwing up our menu of services to make other people happy. And I think by making yourself happy and satisfied and passionate, it allows you to actually meet the needs of your clients in a better and a deeper way to ultimately make those ideal people happier.
Right. And also it gives you the confidence to refer too, and not put yourself in a position that you don't want to be in. I love the idea of being able to be valuable to a client because I knew the right person to refer them to. I know there's a lot of reasons that they come to me because I have somebody that will do this or that, or, be part of a whole team. I like to think in a lot of ways, I think of myself as the third leg on the stool for some clients. Not in every job that I do, but a lot of clients will have their own contractors or their handymen or their own resources, but they just can't make sense of things. So I get to be that third leg on the stool to give them confidence, to be collaborative and move a project forward with them. So I've always, and that whole collaboration piece, I think is so important.
I was just getting ready to say that same word, the collaboration.
Yeah, and when you know who you are and what the services you can provide, it makes it easy to refer people, to say, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I don't do, and to delight in the talents of other people and the businesses that other people provide. So
right.
That's the real joy to me to be in that.
I think that also makes you very trustworthy. Then when you're not, I mean, I'm not saying we don't all have an opportunity to stretch our skill set and stretch our businesses, but to put ourselves in a position to do something that we don't want to do to make somebody else happy, just to be people pleasers, that doesn't usually turn out well. It rarely turns out well, unless it's an area where you already wanted to grow, or that's on your educational plan, or that you are excited about that growth.
Right.
And so we do really need to stop and think about that. And so I love how owning what you do well also allows you to let others own what they do well, and to see the synergistic opportunities between the two of you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what is one of your next big profit goals in your business?
Well, following my plan, my processes, I'm launching, my newly branded business. That was the last coaching call I had with you last April, was I needed to rebrand. And so that was another deep dive into all sorts of processes and understanding how to do that and getting help. And I've been intentionally not busy so I could do that work. And I've been lucky that I've been able to invest that time to do it. But now I'm facing a year of all newness and kind of a described business that I'm excited about. And I really want to capture my time. I really, really want to be able to say, yes, my time is so important, and I'm not wasting other people's time. I'm not wasting my time. We're really putting the value on it, and that is driving my business. So the time piece is one, by following systems and processes. And the other is I really want to start writing. I know blogging is a big deal and it can really drive your business, but it's something that I want to position myself to do. I love talking about issues about design and sustainability, quality, craft. And I really think there's no lack of voices right now for supporting the industry. And because of the changes in everything being available on the internet and just the way design is marketed these days. And I feel like that's a really important piece of what I have to offer. And that even though I may not be capturing an audience of people that will be eventual clients, that I want that part of myself to be expressed. So, and then also the other piece, and a lot of this goes back to about beginning of last year, one of the little exercises I did, I don't think it was with you, but it was, if everything were perfect and you had exactly what you want, what would that be? And I began to imagine a place to work where I would have a messy art studio on one end, a really clean, beautifully professional interior design office on the other end, and in between was going to be social space where I could have conversations, groups, gallery shows, meetings with clients. I mean, it was like would be my ideal space. And I think somebody had this idea of a digital destination, and I realized, that's what I need. I can, rather than having the actual solid studio space, which I think would be too much for me to handle, to do such a large building, of course, but that I can nurture my art, I can nurture my design business, and I can nurture that space, that coming together space in between. And that coming together space in between is what I want to write about. And so I'm excited to be moving into 3 different areas of my business, understanding why they're all important to me, and having systems and processes that allow me to be profitable or have an actual business to be in them. So that's what I'm excited about, and we'll see how profitable it is. I think I'm not someone to really drive a lot of monetary profit. I don't think that way, but it's what happens when I got my passions out there. I had the best year I had ever had just the year before I started to do the coaching with you, and so I'm really excited about picking up and seeing where everything goes.
That's awesome. So, you don't have to always watch the money every moment. I know that'll be shocking to my listeners. If you put a plan in place that allows you to be profitable, then you still inspect it, right? But then what happens is you are able to let it ride a little bit. You would still check it monthly, but you're not having to check every last
Right.
I dot and T cross all the time.
Right.
If you set it up, it's when you set it up poorly and you do more of it, you don't make it up with poor pricing.
And I never understood how much not having that was a stress in and of itself, and which zaps creativity. So it's really wonderful to have a sense of having those structures and having those ideas and that plan. And it's like, yeah, I don't have to watch it all the time. I don't.
Right.
It's really, I'm in my passion. I'm in my zone, which is so important for ADHDers to operate in their zone and to really understand how, that is really what drives business to begin with. It's not, I don't need to worry about these other things.
You've set it up around you to be successful.
Exactly.
To then be able to focus on what you love to do.
Right. Exactly.
So Brita, tell us what your new website is.
It is called Artistry Interior Design. And in that website, it is focus on consulting services, meeting people where they are, helping them navigate the internet. What I've found is that even with all the resources out there for people, and everybody, it used to be everybody used to like come with their Architectural Digest or magazine pages pulled out to show you. And now everyone's got the idea books, the Pinterest, the everything. It has, for some people, that's all they need, and they can execute a project beautifully without help. But for so many people, it has caused such stress and anxiety. And then you have wonderful HGTV shows that shows you how everything is done. And then people leave feeling like, well, I still can't do that. So the focus of my business is really answering to those pain points and being willing to meet people at a point where they just need help. And they don't really know if what they want is what they assume a designer does. And there are so many designers that, probably work like I do. Like they don't have to have the complete project or the whole room but my process is very geared toward providing different levels of service and helping people weed out their frustrations and their anxieties about their visual life, and I love doing that. It's so much fun. So Artistry is going to be focused on consulting services and that meeting people where they are in the journey. I know we talked about that as being, I think at one point you described that, so you're like the trip director. People want to take a trip and they want to go to very interesting places. They just don't know how to get there, and they want someone to hold the map. So I found that to be a good analogy, and it's definitely what I do. So that's how I'm approaching my artistry interior design.
Awesome. And so your website is artistryid.com, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And so we will make sure we put links in the show notes to you for
Thank you.
Instagram, Facebook, website, wherever you're hanging out. We'll make sure they're there for people to find you.
Great.
So Brita, thank you so much for sharing today.
Michele.
Thank you for talking about your journey, for your superpower of ADHD, for letting go of the idea that your business needs to look like everybody else's, and instead embracing what you do well and what you love, and then finding a way to make money at that, because that's what makes it fun.
Yes. And thank you so much for being on my team.
You're welcome.
Consider it a blessing.
Well, I'm always here. You know that. So I've enjoyed working with you and enjoyed watching you discover. I mean, I think that's one of my most favorite things with the clients that I work with, is being able to listen to them, share with them, challenge the thinking, and then sit back and watch them discover and put what they learn into action to really have the business they want.
Yes.
So it's fun to watch and to see, and it makes me so proud to see that you've done such a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a joy. A difficult journey and a joy.
And a joy. That's right. That's right. Because it's not always easy, is it?
No, it isn't.
Not always easy, but it is a choice.
Yes, it is.
It is. And you're making great ones. So keep it up.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Brita, for your insight and sharing your journey with us. My hope is that everyone can create the business that works for them and not feel the pressure to offer services or products that they just really don't want to do. And the Designers Inner Circles is exactly what we work through. The same module called the Solid Foundation Builder that Brita worked through is the first module in the Designers Inner Circle. Because knowing who we are and what makes us special is actually what makes our business special too. So join me over in the Designer's Inner Circle if you want to create a business that works for you. You can find information at scarletthreadconsulting.com. Creating your business leads to profitability, and that doesn't happen by accident.